At the risk of sounding like an auto salesman, what does the president have to do to put you in a new car? Or at least sell you on his auto bailout. He proudly mentioned it again today in Iowa, a day after doing so in his State of the Union address. His speech today struck similar notes to his State of the Union address. He even name-checked the same electorally important Midwestern cities like Cleveland and Pittsburgh. But wherever the president goes this campaign season, you can expect to hear him singing the same melody, and for good reason. Sales were up double digits last year, and the administration says over 100,000 jobs have been created since the 2009 managed bankruptcy. Even Mitt Romney says that, like healthcare, this is one more area where the president has followed his example.
General Motors and Chrysler went through a managed bankruptcy exactly as I said back, I think it was in November. It took the president 5 or 6 months to come around to that. That's what they had to do.
Hang on a minute. Wasn't that the same Mitt Romney who said the government should not have intervened in the motor industry? Yes, it was, but as always, Mr. Romney claims both sides of the coin. Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, whose state is at the heart of this renaissance in manufacturing, joins us now. Good afternoon, sir.
Good. I like the way you say the motor industry.
Oh, thank you very much.
We don't say that way in Ohio, but I like the way it sounds with your
Well, that's terribly kind. You know that I mean the same thing as your good self.
Well, I understand.
Mitt Romney is storming round the country at this very moment, telling everyone that his time at Bain Capital wasn't just about over-leveraging companies and putting millions in his own bank account, but it was actually about creating jobs. Now, you live and you serve a community that was on the very precipice of disaster. So how has the government's approach to the auto industry paid off in your area?
Well, everybody in Ohio knows that my state would have likely been in bankruptcy. I mean, been in depression if we had not rescued the auto industry. And, you know, when some say, well, we should have just let them go into bankruptcy and restructure. Well, there was no capital available. Every small business person in America knew in 2008 and 2009 there was no capital available for anything. Certainly no group of investors would have put the money in to resuscitate and rebuild and restructure Chrysler and GM, not to mention the tier 1, tier 2, and 3 suppliers in the supply chain. And so if the government hadn't invested, these people wouldn't be at work. And I'll give you the best example. Chevy Cruze is one of the best-selling cars in America. The engine's made in Defiance, the bumpers made in Northwood, Ohio, the transmissions in Toledo, the steel in aluminum come out of Cleveland. The Springboro, Ohio provides the sound system. It was assembled in Lordstown, 3 shifts, 5,000 workers. Those people wouldn't be working today, most of them. Overwhelming majority of them would not be working if we hadn't done that auto rescue where the government invested and then the government's selling, it's pulling out so private industry takes it over as they should and is making those decisions. GM today, as you know, is again the biggest, the largest auto company in the world. That never would have happened if the president and Congress hadn't stepped up and created that partnership with the industry and the government.
And yet, you know, sir, Republicans have previously criticized the president. John Boehner's spokesman in June of last year said, and I'm quoting, the bailout was nothing to celebrate. Even John Kasich, however, the governor of your state, has said, quote, contrary to popular opinion, the auto industry is getting stronger. And yet these are people who philosophically believe that what should have happened, as Mitt Romney has said in terms of housing, just let the thing fall apart, collapse, and capitalism will somehow resolve the problem.
Yeah, people hear that they're so stuck and entrenched in their philosophy of something, of government, of economics, that they miss the practical aspects of what they do. And the best example, perhaps, of overall, in addition to what I mentioned about the Cruze, is that in the last 6 months, Ford, which was not part of the rescue, Chrysler and GM, which were, and Honda, which of course was not, all 4 of those companies, Ohio-centric in many ways, and Michigan-centric, those 4 companies all announced multi-$100 million investments in Ohio alone. And if that doesn't tell you about the growth of the auto industry, and again, don't forget, there's thousands that work for the big companies, but there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands that work in the supply chain. And those are all over Ohio and Pennsylvania and Michigan and Indiana and Wisconsin and Illinois, too, and the rest of the country. I mean, down to Tennessee and all now with the transplants. So this was a huge success. Governor Romney, he knows that there would have been no real financing. Bain would not have invested in a. I mean, that's the question. Some would be interesting in a debate if Porter would say, Governor Romney, if you had been at Bain recently, would you have invested in the auto industry after bankruptcy if the government hadn't stepped up? And it'd be interesting to hear him answer that question.
I think we know that he wouldn't, because he wouldn't be making his $24 million a year. Senator Sherrod Brown, thank you very much for joining us, sir.